fully nourished, it won't.
I started researching every alternative doctor that I could find.
My main philosophy is to project an image of hope and of getting them into a good remission.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. Mandy Naum is no stranger to physical stress. After all, as a bodybuilding pioneer, she spent countless hours in the gym, stretching and straining her muscles to exhaustion, only to come back the next day and do it all again. She had always relied on her superior fitness and strength to get her through the toughest workouts. Little did she know that her most daunting physical challenge would come from within her own body. It was a killer that had been there all along. It just took a lifetime to reveal itself. In her gut, Mandy knew that she didn't want to fight this battle in the conventional way, and so she set out to push her body again, this time with a new approach.
I was so scared, I can't even tell you, because I just didn't think anything like this could happen to me in my life.
I mean, so many things in your life you can control, but this you couldn't control.
The last radiologist I saw looked at me with a very fatherly smile and said, well, we're going to burn you, we're going to poison you, and we're going to cut your breast off, but you'll be fine. Welcome to the fold, sweetheart. He gives me this big fatherly hug. I guess it was probably the scariest moment of my life because I had no guidance. I knew I didn't have any doctors because I wasn't going back there.
I remember feeling like I was so lost because I couldn't take care of the problem. I felt helpless. She looked at me and she just said she didn't want to die.
Once it sunk in, it was very hard. Every morning, I'd say within the first week, I would wake up feeling great, and then it would hit me within seconds like, oh, that's right, she has cancer.
I started researching every alternative doctor that I could find.
Just this wave of strength came over me. I was on this route and I just went whoosh, and that was the end of it. I was on a whole different path and have been. I come from a family of fitness pioneers. My mother was actually dubbed the strongest woman in the world. She was a weightlifter. My father was Mr. America, and my uncle was gym pioneer Vic Tanny, who had over 100 health clubs across the United States. So I grew up in a jungle of gyms, you might say. When I was 6 years old, my mother moved to Las Vegas. She got a job there, and I was there for about a year. And then she moved back to Hawaii, and I moved back with her. About 2 years after we moved back to Hawaii, I was about 8 years old. I noticed a lump in my chest, and I didn't say anything to anybody because I was young and scared and probably too embarrassed. And it stayed with me all my life. It never went away. It got bigger as I grew up. I never said anything to anybody.
When Mandy finally did tell doctors about her lump, they dismissed it as a common cyst. She believed she was healthy and fit.
Because of my family, I went into the health club business and I started actually bodybuilding. I was one of the first women bodybuilders before it was even popular back in the mid-70s. And I also used to do a lot of running, long-distance running. I'd run 5-7 miles a day. So I was always really, really fit and lean.
Mandy's enthusiasm for health and well-being extended to her work as an editor for Muscle and Fitness magazine.
I wrote 2 cookbooks, health food cookbooks, and I did a lot of other things, articles on fitness. I covered women's bodybuilding shows as a journalist until I went into the health club business with my husband after I met him.
We opened up our first gym in 1990. It was Tanny's Personal Fitness, and we worked it together, and we grew. Our business grew. We developed eventually five clubs here in the Southern California area.
We were overwhelmed by the business and the stress of it and helping other people, and you start forgetting about yourself. And I hardly worked out, only when I could squeeze in a workout, but mostly it was about the business and the people you were trying to help. You became second, and that was probably one of my downfalls.
We sold it, our last one 4 years ago. We were both very much burnt out at that time. And I decided that I wanted to spend more time with her.
They just seemed more relaxed and even more creative, which they never had time to do before.
After the first 2 years that we were out of the business, she came to me in October of 2005 and said she had a problem.
Mandy had always believed that the lump in her breast was only a cyst, but now it had developed into something more ominous.
I never paid much attention to it because I had it since I was 8 years old. But I looked in the mirror and I saw a large purple area, almost like a grape, on the outside of my breast. I showed it to my husband that day and he just got grim. He looked at me and he went, "You better go see somebody right away." It's amazing how you can get into doctors really quickly when there's something seriously wrong. And that day I went and saw the full circuit of these doctors. They did a needle biopsy, they poked and they prodded. I didn't walk, but I ran to my car and I just sobbed.
I remember distinctly, I heard her come in and she was standing in the hallway. She was just standing there in tears. I said, "What's the matter? What's the problem?" And she explained to me, what happened with the radiologist, who basically told her, "Welcome to the fold," or heard whatever he said, something like that.
In truth, I was scared. I was lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wasn't going to do the cut, burn, and poison route.
Mandy Naum had lived 3 decades with a lump in her breast. Doctors said it was nothing to worry about, but during a routine self-exam, Mandy realized that what she was told was a cyst had mutated into something frighteningly different. Doctors confirmed her worst fears, but Mandy had no intention of giving in to them.
Over the years, the last few years, I've seen at least 12 different doctors for either surgeons, oncologists, or chemotherapists looking for solutions. And I think I'm probably their worst nightmare. They expected someone to say, "Oh, thank you, I'll do whatever you say. You're going to make me well, and I'm just so happy to have all this done to me." And I just took the opposite approach. I'd question and kind of argue, and I think that I kind of riled some of them up.
My mom had always been a very strong-willed person. Nothing ever seemed to get to her. But once she had cancer, it was the first time I'd ever seen her get really scared.
Tears your heart out. I've never seen her like that. Tell you the truth, she's always been stronger than I have in so many different ways, and I've never seen her break down like that.
I didn't know where I was going to go, so after I had a good cry, I just got real strong at that point. And over the next few weeks, he was looking stuff up, and I was doing all these healthy things, trying to, thinking I could get rid of it myself.
We always believe that the body can heal itself if you give it the proper nutrition. We started incorporating more raw food diet, more juicing, supplementation, herbs. We really incorporated a lot of that into our diets.
Probably made myself very healthy for what was to come, so I could deal with it better.
I started researching every alternative doctor that I could find, and I started sending emails to them stating what my wife's case was, that she had breast cancer. Several of them wrote back to me right away. One of them was Dr. Forsythe, who sent me a very warm letter.
Mandy developed a right breast cancer, which was a stage 4 cancer because it involved the skin and lymph nodes. She had been offered the standard of surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. She was of the mind that she wanted to do everything she could in her power to do alternative therapy.
Did I have doubts? Yes, I have doubts, because again, there are success rates with the typical medicine. You always have that there in the back of your mind that, okay, maybe that is a way to go. But then again, I understand my wife and how she feels about things. And everything she does, she looks at it to the natural, holistic end of life. What is your body feeling? What is your body saying to you? And what can you do to nurture that?
Growing up, my mom made sure that my nutrition and health were a big priority. But after she had told me that she had cancer, I became the positive reinforcement for her.
It's all geared to being holistic and natural to the body. And that's one of the biggest bases that we've gone through.
My husband did some research on the internet, and he told me about this Dr. Forsyth in Nevada that was doing IPT, insulin potentiation therapy. He called him and made a plea, and they got me in, and he said, "We're flying to Nevada tomorrow." I was so scared. I was going to fly into Nevada to see a doctor who was probably going to tell me, "There is no hope for you. You should have listened to those first doctors."
The biggest thing I remember is when we landed in Reno. I could see there was a fear there of her not wanting to do that because she didn't, the unknown, I could see it. And that actually made me stronger.
When we got there, I was in the office waiting to see Dr. Forsyth, and I was just shaking. I was terrified. Again, thinking once he sees what's going on, he's just going to go, you know. But he didn't. He didn't say anything about mastectomy or that I was going to die or anything like that. He was very kind, and his approach and demeanor just gave me a lot of hope.
When I see patients like Mandy, my main philosophy is to project an image of hope and of getting them into a good remission. Many times they come with a lot of negative imagery which has already been laid down on them by their other doctors. So it's very important for me to change that imagery and get them thinking positive, get them thinking that they can defeat what's going on in their bodies, and let them know that the body is self-healing if they give it the proper tools.
When I left that day, we stayed overnight in a hotel near the clinic. I was going to go back the next day to start the therapy. I said to my husband, I have to be honest, as against doctors as I have been up till now, I'm really happy to put myself in someone else's hands.
Mandy Naum had dedicated her life to exercise, eating well, and enjoying every day to its fullest. But her body betrayed her, and now she'd have to use all of her energy to fight breast cancer. Every doctor she had seen up to now had recommended surgery and heavy radiation, but Mandy was not going down that terrifying path. She and her husband George finally found Dr. Forsyth, who was willing to show her another way.
He didn't talk about anything other than, yeah, we'll just start this and just see how it goes. And it wasn't doom and gloom. And he gave me hope. I felt like I was going to be okay. It was a good feeling because I'd been so scared for a good month. I've been living in just terror.
Mandy's doctors strengthened her body with a variety of minerals, vitamins, and amino acids. Now they would work on weakening the cancer's hold.
We also used another type of unique therapy called IPT, which stands for insulin potentiated therapy. Insulin is used along with the chemotherapy in very low doses, incidentally, to enhance the effect of the chemotherapy.
They put the IV in your arm. They give you something to quell any nausea. And then they give you insulin and drive your blood sugar down so you'd actually get shaky and weak, and then they administer the low-dose chemo while you're eating cookies and orange juice and things like that, and then it drives your blood sugar back up again, and then you just feel all buzzed, and then all of a sudden you get tired. And so before the chemo's over, you're like, and you sleep the rest of the treatment.
Cancer cells thrive on simple sugars. So when you give insulin to a patient through an intravenous dosage, you're tricking the cancer cells into thinking there's sugar coming along. So they basically open their pores up widely and they accept the chemotherapy much better, and they're more receptive to it because they're in a receptive mood.
We flew into Nevada once a week for treatment for about 3 months, and I got great results.
There came a point with Mandy when we felt we had reached the maximum benefit of the low-dose chemotherapy with the IPT. And at that point, she was quite stable, but there was still some residual disease in her right breast.
The tumor shrunk greatly, but there was still something there. And I kind of knew it wouldn't go away completely. I had it all my life since I was 8 years old. I knew it wasn't going to go away completely, and it didn't.
And I told Mandy very frankly at that time that I did feel that some surgery was necessary at this time.
He didn't say, go get a mastectomy or go get this. Or go. He just said, go get a test, or he says, maybe you want to have the lump excised. He says, you decide.
Agreeing to any type of surgery was frightening enough, but Mandy couldn't accept the idea of having her entire breast removed. Of course, that's exactly what every surgeon she saw wanted to do. It was a frustrating and demoralizing ordeal.
And luckily, she found a doctor through a recommendation, and he says, yeah, I can do it, but I don't recommend it. And he said, I can recommend a mastectomy. And she said, I want a lumpectomy. I want the lump taken out.
When I had the lumpectomy, they didn't get clean margins. The doctor did a sentinel node biopsy and they found one cancerous lymph node.
The standard recommendation was aggressive radiation or chemotherapy, but Mandy felt she needed to build up her immune system before taking on such a burden. Dr. Christian Issels would help her regain her strength.
He suggested a 2-day-a-week program for her to build her immune system back up.
Mandy came off surgery, so her body was, the tumor load was reduced. Her immune system was stressed from the surgery, so it's a great time to build it up. She got high-dose vitamin C, as well as, the B vitamins, and she did that for a period of once a week for a period of about 8 months. Everything is based on nourishment. If the body's well nourished, it will function well. If it's poorly nourished, it won't.
The treatment was working. Mandy's tumor marker tests revealed healthy levels.
So I called Dr. Forsythe and I said, I was getting prepared to come back for more chemo, but my tumor marker test came back low. He said, just hold off. He says, hold off and see how it goes. So I did, and I stayed with Dr. Issels' program, and my tumor marker test stayed low for about 9 months. After about 9 months, it just started all over again. It came back. And when it came back, because there was less breast tissue, it attached itself to the chest wall.
It hits you like a ton of bricks.
When in the times that her treatment seemed to be working for a while, you grow almost complacent because you think, oh, everything's going really good. And then when she gets a scare, when her numbers start to go back up, then you're reliving the whole thing, and it's almost like you're finding it out again for the first time.
And the outside of the breast was, just all purple and everything, and it was really horrific looking.
So she wanted to be more aggressive, so we did our 3-week protocol, which is 5 days a week. That's a very intensive protocol.
Despite her best efforts, the breast cancer refused to retreat. Instead of giving up, Mandy chose to pour even more of herself into the alternative treatments. But she may have gone too far.
I think I was getting toxic from all these things I was doing, and probably on my own doing too much of it. So I just laid off everything. I went and saw Dr. Forsythe again, and that's when he diagnosed me at stage 4.
Mandy Naum put everything she had into her battle with cancer, but it had been a wild and demoralizing ride. Progress was always followed by setback, and this time, despite her seemingly tireless effort, the disease advanced to stage 4.
Her disease, as many cancers do, cropped up again with what we call a relapse. So there was a relapse locally in the breast. Fortunately, there was no widespread relapse. So at that point, I felt Mandy needed an oral form of mild chemotherapy, and I prescribed this therapy. And the protocol for that was 10 days on, 10 days off.
So we came back and found out the lower dose chemotherapies are very costly. And she said, well, maybe we should look at something else that's closer to us.
Mandy was directed to the Valley Cancer Institute in Los Angeles, a group that specializes in alternative cancer treatment.
Hyperthermia is a big improvement when treating patients with radiation.
It involves low-dose radiation and hypothermia, and there's 2 kinds of hypothermia they give you. One is microwave, which was just terrifying to me, the thought of it, and the other is ultrasound.
If you treat with heat alone in patients, the response rate is about 13%, which is very low. However, when you use it in combination with radiation, the response rate in tumors that are properly heated it goes up to 80–90%.
After several weeks there, it was getting smaller, and the coloration was coming back. The normal coloration was coming back in her breast. And that was a great sign, to see that happening.
Right now, she's in a very good place. I'd say she's in the safest place that she's ever been because her test scores have been very low and have been consistently low for as long as she's had the cancer.
It looks cured. There's still a lump in there. I know there always will be because I can't seem to get rid of it. I've had it all my life, but I'm ready to go back again if I need to go back for more.
Since this whole process started with my wife having cancer, it's opened up my eyes to what's out there, that there is tremendous help out there.
I think it's really important that people get multiple diagnoses, because people that don't, who just rush into things, are in a bad place because they end up suffering from it in more ways than one.
Mandy Naum had always pushed her body to its physical limits, and her body had always responded. Then a long dormant killer awoke and threatened to cut her life short. But Mandy wasn't going to stand for that. She refocused all of her energy on finding an alternative way to deal with breast cancer, and she won.